Well, welcome back to Assent, Dissent, everyone. My name is Brandon,
And I am Sean on location.
and we are both happy to finally be back. We apologize for last week. As you can hear, I am getting over a cold, but I am happy to be back here with Sean, and Sean's going to go ahead and take us to our first topic for tonight.
Well, Brandon, it is good to see you. I'm glad that you're recovering well. There's been a lot going on lately in America, in American politics, and our culture and everything. And first and foremost, I think we need to pay homage to the passing of, as she's been dubbed, the notorious RBG, and that is Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg of the Supreme Court, who passed away a few weeks ago and currently is being memorialized as we speak. So at this time, for our listeners that are listening by way of podcast, we're just going to take a brief moment of silence to pay homage to her memory. Thank you, guys. So the passing of Justice Ginsburg brings so much to the forefront, so many things. I mean, Brandon, you and I talked offline about this, about just the devastating reality it would be for her to be replaced by the current administration. And I want to say to our listeners listening to us that, of course, you may hear our views and they may be a little more liberal than some people would like or would imagine. But for me, when it comes to the Supreme Court of the United States of America, institutions like that, I think, in my opinion, should always transcend politics. Um, Regardless of which way you lean, that is the highest court of the land. And when they speak, it's final. I mean, they make judgments on the U.S. Constitution, so they should always be fair and nonpartisan. And my only fear with, you know, another appointee from the current president is, one, how fair is that appointee going to be? How what does that do to the balance of the courts? It's just a lot of things that I think need to be taken into account, not to mention the entire fiasco of the very same people rushing to replace Justice Ginsburg are the very same people who refused to replace Antonin Scalia when it was President Obama's turn to do it, because it was an election year. And I really think it's 100% distasteful for Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to release a statement, trying to, pay respects to Justice Ginsburg, a few hours after she passed. And in the exact same statement, talks about how quickly they're going to move to replace her. And for me, I just think that was entirely distasteful and disrespectful. I mean, this whole process to me has been distasteful and disrespectful, because I think the least they could have done is waited until we had all of her memorial services, buried her, and then moved on with the process. I mean, that to me seems the right thing to do. And I'm not happy with the way that they're doing it. I think they're disrespecting her memory and her legacy. And then to replace her with Amy Coney Barrett, who was a U.S. appeals judge for 3 years. And that's her only judicial experience outside of being a law professor for 15. You can talk now, because I'm starting to get fed up.
Well, I was going to say I assent with you completely on the viewpoint that, excuse me, everybody, that the Supreme Court should transcend all political intricacies, viewpoints, parties, etc. So to me, the only way to truly make the judiciary independent is to have a completely different way of going about selecting and approving and benching the Supreme Court people. It's always going to be political inherently. If you have the president of a given term, Republican or Democrat, picking who the nominee for the court will be, it's inherently going to be political. And I mean,
Absolutely.
no matter how independent you are as a person, as a judge, you're still going to have your viewpoints on how you interpret the law, what you think is fair. And in a way, part of that is political because you are inferring your judgment based on your views of the world onto it. In my opinion, the best way for that to erase all of that would be to just make sure that there's an even number of judges on both sides to where they have to work together, to where one may swing this way or that way. There doesn't need to be an opposite number of judges because we're all adults here. Why can't we come to a compromise? You get what I'm saying? But
Absolutely.
Yes,
and I will say, just to interject real quick, I am starting to appreciate the Chief Justice right now, John Roberts, because what I have noticed in some of his opinions that have been coming forth is that he has taken on a new responsibility and mentality as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to really understand that his job is to be 100% fair. And I will say that so far, I've got to give him props in doing that. But with another conservative justice on the bench, can we even maintain that? Will he be enough? And I don't think that's the case. I don't think Supreme Court justices or judges at all, because when they run, they have to run in most states nonpartisan. And I think that it should be that way the entire history of a judgeship, no matter where you are or what bench you're appointed to. We shouldn't know if you're conservative or liberal because that should have no bearing on your job and what you're doing. We just need to know, how do you interpret the Constitution of the United States of America?
and I agree with you completely. I was actually going to say that John Roberts, being the Chief Justice, he has been swinging, on his decisions as of late, and he is a Republican appointee. However, with Trump getting another person to the Supreme Court to replace Justice Ginsburg, that would create ideally six conservative, three liberal justice situation to even where Chief Justice John Roberts, even if he does go with the liberal side, he's going to be outnumbered no matter what.
Absolutely. And I think, too, the mentality of some of the appointees of Trump has just shown us that how much can we really put faith in our Supreme Court anymore, especially with the appointment of Brett Kavanaugh. And Amy Coney Barrett, praised Antonin Scalia's interpretation of the Constitution. And while I'm for parts of original interpretation, of the Constitution, I think we also have to look at that as a living, breathing document, because with original interpretation, you and I are still 3/5 of a person. So I automatically get nervous anytime I hear somebody say original interpretation of the Constitution, because I know what that means in a lot of different instances. And for me, I just find it absolutely amazing how this one man has been in office for 4 years and has literally destroyed the faith and the trust in institutions that are the epitome of America in a matter of 4 years. I mean, the CDC, the USPS, the Supreme Court,
intelligence agencies.
And I'm almost ready to move on if you don't have anything else.
No, I was getting ready to say that it's unfortunate. I was going to bring up the point to you that there has been much speculation as to how the Democrats should respond should the Republicans get to ram Amy Coney Barrett through the court. And one of them is to do court packing, something that Franklin Delano Roosevelt attempted to do, and it has been done before. There have been a different number of judges. It wasn't always 9. How do you feel about the Democrats increasing the number of judges to basically liquidate or nullify any type of conservative viewpoints on the court?
So that definitely is a possibility. As you and I both know, as students of politics, it has been done before. The court has fluctuated in as many, I think at one time there were 15 on the bench at one particular period of history. That is something that they can do. That's something that's in their right to do to maintain the balance and fairness of the court. My only issue is all of that to me is still up in the air and hypothetical because we don't know what the results of November are going to be. I mean, if they take possession of the Senate after November, but not the White House, then we're stuck. You know, if they take possession of the White House, but not the Senate, we're stuck. So they need to do both. And I mean, really, we just need to see what that's going to look like. I will say, as I've been checking different stats and things like that, I know you're going to get into that coverage a little bit later. I am happy to see that Ohio is going blue, even though it is an opaque blue and like the closest blue you can be to red. You know, as my grandmother used to tell me, anything is better than nothing.
That is true. And you know what? Let's go ahead and start the second topic, which I'm calling the state of play election 2020, you know, trying to make it very dramatic. So we're going to start with the House of Representatives. As it stands right now, the Democrats hold 232 seats. The Republicans hold 198. So this means that the Democrats are in control of the House, obviously, with Nancy Pelosi as the Speaker. There are currently 4 vacant seats, 3 previously held by Republican and 1 that was held by a Democrat. But all 4 of these are considered to be strong Republican seats. So in theory, if the Republicans keep all the seats they currently have, all they need to do is pick up 18 seats to win back the House of Representatives. However, according to 538, 222 of these seats are safely Democrat or likely to be Democrat or lean toward being Democrat. Meanwhile, the Republicans are expected to keep 193 seats. Sean, do you assent or dissent with the predictions that the House will basically stay in Democrat control?
I have not been paying close attention to the House races, but I'm pretty sure that on the House side of things, there's not very much to worry about. I am interested because I heard one of the facts that you gave out about the vacant seats. Does that take into account the seat vacated by the passing of Representative John Lewis? Because if that's the case, I would love to see how that flips Republican.
That's what I was questioning, and I believe that one is John Lewis, but maybe they're considering Georgia as a whole being Republican, but you know, that district that he was in was heavily blue. So I
Yeah, that
highly
district
doubt that
that
that's
he
going to
was
flip.
in, they gerrymandered to give Democrats like 1 or 2 seats. So yeah, that's definitely not flipping. So if anything, if that seat is counted, I don't know how 538 is counting that seat, but that's definitely one the Republicans have no shot in getting.
So currently, moving on to the Senate, there are 47 Democratic senators and 53 Republicans, leading to a Republican majority Senate with Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. So, according to CNN, they claim that there are 10 seats that are likely to flip. I picked out the top 8 that I think are the most important to keep eyes on. So, Alabama, the seat currently held by Democratic Senator Doug Jones. That's, of course, expected to flip back to Republican. Currently, right now, the Republican candidate Tommy Tuberville is ahead 18 points with 52%, and Doug Jones at 34%. Colorado, the current incumbent Republican Cory Gardner is clearly expected to lose his seat to Democratic candidate John Hickenlooper. Their race stands at Hickenlooper being ahead by 7 points, 49% to Cory Gardner's 42%. Arizona, the incumbent and appointed Republican Martha McSally is expected to lose her seat because she was never elected to it in the first place to Democratic candidate Mark Kelly. Currently, Mark Kelly holds...
Can I put a pause there real quick, Brandon? Because
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to update our viewers. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't that seat in Arizona the one that if they hurry up and like do a special election, he'll take office before the election?
Yes.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to make sure that I was following along right. Thank you.
And currently, Mark is at a 9-point lead. He has 47% to McSally's 38%. So Martha McSally was appointed to that seat after John McCain passed away.
Got you.
North Carolina, the Republican incumbent Tom Tillis is down by 10 points to Democratic candidate Cal Cunningham. Right, 10 points. 38% for Republican Tom Tillis and 48% for Cal Cunningham. In Maine, this is one that I'm really excited to see how it'll turn out. The Republican incumbent Susan Collins is arguably in a statistical tie with Democratic candidate Sarah Gideon. Their race currently stands at 45% for Democrat Sarah Gideon and 41% for Republican Susan Collins. But there are other independent candidates that are splitting the Republican vote, which is why the Democratic candidate is expected to win.
Perfect.
Georgia, CNN claims that this one is going to be a flip, but I don't see it. The current Republican Senator David Perdue is having the fight of his life against Democratic candidate John Ossoff. The race currently sits at 47% for Republican David Perdue and 42% for Democrat John Ossoff. I really don't think that Georgia is going to flip to Ossoff. He ran when they had a special election. He came very close, but he did not win.
Well, I will say nothing is impossible. Georgia has been having a lot of upheaval lately, and I think Stacey Abrams really kicked that into gear in her election. So I wouldn't be totally shocked if it flips. I mean, look at Arizona. I never expect anything blue to come out of Arizona. And the fact that you have a Democratic challenger in Arizona just knocking the socks off of a Republican, I think that's amazing. And even in North Carolina. So these are states that aren't Arizona is a little bit of a swing state, but I mean, it doesn't swing that much as like an Ohio, a Michigan, a Florida, or a PA.
Exactly. And then in Montana, Republican incumbent Steve Daines is at 45%, which is a statistical tie with Democratic candidate Steve Bullock, who's at 42%. And in South Carolina, Republican incumbent and scumbag Lindsey Graham is statistically tied with Democratic candidate Jamie Harrison, who is at 45%. I mean, Graham is at 45% and Harrison is at 44%.
And Harrison is a person of color, which I'm also excited about in South Carolina, because that is just like, whoa. Honestly, I as much as I would like the Dems to take control of the Senate, to bring balance to the force, which I call the Supreme Court. I love Star Wars, so I like to throw those in there. I would really love to see South Carolina flip, Georgia flip, and God in heaven, if at all possible, I would love to see Kentucky flip. And the amount of voter suppression going on in Kentucky because of how scared McConnell is, I think just really shows how much of a chance it is that Kentucky could flip.
All right, and then, so there are 8 seats in total that I'm thinking are important to watch. There was a couple more like Iowa and something else. The Democrats only need to pick up 4 seats to win a majority, and there's 8 clearly here at play. I mean, if you look at Colorado, Arizona, which is in the bag, North Carolina's in the bag. All you need is South Carolina. All you need is Georgia, Montana. You need just one more of these other ones. I would love to see all of them flip Democrat, but all you need is one more. Are you, Sean, what do you kind of already said what what would you like to see? Would you prefer a Democratic-controlled Senate or a Democratic-controlled House? Obviously, the ideal situation will be Democrat-controlled both, but if you had to pick one or the other, which one would you like to see?
I would like to see a Democratic-controlled Senate more than House.
Thank
as
you.
you said, ideally, both would be great, but I think people fail to realize that the Senate is the upper chamber of the House, and the Senate is where a lot of the authority rests. So for me, I think the Senate is definitely likely, and what I would rather see controlled by Dems, because it's easy to get something through the House if necessary. But when you don't have control of that upper chamber, as you see over the last 4 years, it is hard for any progress to be made.
Absolutely. So now we're going to move on to the presidential election. So on a national level, Democratic candidate Joe Biden is ahead by 10 points, 53% to 43%. However, I want to point out that because we elect people for president based on the Electoral College, the national poll is only important if you want to identify trends, not necessarily the best way to predict who's going to win the presidency. With that said, we're going to look at the important battleground or swing states, and these are the current standings. Wisconsin, a state that Trump won by 1% in 2016, currently sits with Biden having an 8-point lead, 52% to Donald Trump's 44%. New Hampshire, a state that Hillary Clinton won by 0.4% in 2016, is in a statistical tie with Biden, 45% to Trump, 42%. Michigan, a state that Trump won by 0.3% in 2016, currently has Biden ahead at 52% to Trump's 44%.
Let me put a brief pause there about Michigan, because one of the facts that people, I think, miss about Michigan is, and I hate hearing people say, oh, I'm not voting, or my vote doesn't count, or it's not important. When you look, and I think I shared this once before on a previous podcast, when you look at Michigan's voter turnout in 2016, Trump won by an average of 2 votes per precinct.
Wow.
Literally 2 votes per precinct. And in some of those precincts, there were more than 100,000 people that did not show up to the polls. And at least 40% of those numbers were people that look like you and I.
Well, and that's why I'm glad you pointed that out. That's why I'm stating what percentage he won these states by in 2016, because 0.3%. That's literally a few thousand votes. As you said, 2 votes per precinct. Like, wow. You know what I'm saying? Like, we could have avoided all of this.
Absolutely, if you would just come out and vote. And that's to Bernie supporters, too.
Hey, I'm with you there. Pennsylvania, a state that Trump won by 1.2% in 2016, has Biden ahead at 51% to Trump's 43%. Ohio, as you said before, where Trump won very comfortably by 8.6% in 2016, currently has Trump down by 5% with Biden at 49 and Trump at 44, which is arguably a statistical tie as well. Arizona is a state where Trump won by 4.1% and is now in a statistical tie with Biden at 49 to Trump 47, which is interesting considering their Senate race going on with Martha McSally and Mark Kelly. In Florida, in 2016, Trump won by 1.3% in 2016, and that is likely going to happen again, as Trump is ahead 51% to Biden's 47%. North Carolina is another state Trump won in 2016 by 3.8%. He's now in a tie with Biden, 47 to 47. Minnesota, where Trump won by a mere 1.5%, which is the first time a Republican won Minnesota in many, many, many years, currently has him behind by 7 points with Biden at 47 and Trump at 40. Lastly, in Georgia, In 2016, Trump won very comfortably again by 5.7%. However, as it stands today, Biden and Trump are both tied at 45%. So, Sean, what do you make of states like Georgia and North Carolina, where Trump won comfortably, being so close this election?
I think that says a lot if we can hold on to these polls and trust them as true. My biggest fear and what I don't want to see is Trump lose by 6 million votes and somehow still keep the Electoral College.
Now, I'm glad you said that. My next question. It is clear that Donald Trump has always ran an Electoral College campaign, or based on the electoral map, instead of a national popular vote. Remember, I said on episode 1 of this podcast that I said that we should abolish the Electoral College because, like you said, he lost to Hillary Clinton by 3 million votes and is in the White House. Yep. How is our leader, the person who won the minority of votes, running the rest of us? That's not how a democracy is supposed to go. But anyways, I'm not going to go off on a tangent. That is why, in my opinion...
The episode 1, if you want Brandon's comments on there.
Right, episode 1. That is why, in my opinion, he was successful in 2016, in addition to things like low voter turnout, voter suppression, and the Russians. Sean, do you feel that things will be different in this election?
I don't know how I feel. I know what I hope. And I hope that things will be different in this election. I hope for everything that I believe and stand on in regards to America, it will be different. Otherwise, I feel like I will lose faith in America.
And that was going to lead to my next question. What do you feel is at stake and how important it is to you? But I think you just clearly summed it up for us. The last part I wanted to bring up about the election is not only do we have to deal with the mail-in votes, so we're not going to find out on November 3rd who won, but with Trump getting to put Amy Coney Barrett on the court. This is what the whole game plan is. There's going to be at some point where there's going to be a call to stop counting the legal votes that were mailed in. And then, this is just going to be catastrophic. This is such a massive...
Well, he said that. He said that himself, that he plans to challenge this election if he doesn't win. And it's important that Barrett sits on the bench because it's going to go before the Supreme Court. That in and of itself, to me, is absolutely problematic. And if you can't see the problems with that, then I'm sorry, something is wrong with you.
Which is why it should be a mandate that if they do unfairly and hypocritically put Amy Coney Barrett on the bench with her wonderful 3 years of experience, she should be forced to recuse herself. And
well, it should not be only that, I don't think that it should even if he contests the election, I don't know that in this case it should even go to the Supreme Court. I mean, at the end of the day, the states decided. And you have put in more than enough measures and done more than enough things to destroy the state of this country for your own personal gain. I mean, you've given people shaky faith in the United States postal system. The fact that people have already turned in absentee ballot request forms in Ohio and they're not going to get them back. They're not even going to start mailing them till October 6th. That's problematic in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. Well, part of that is partly on Ohio's laws that we can't vote early until 60 days before the election. But so they should have adjusted accordingly. But, Ohio, where we are from, is, such a great state. All sarcasm and pun intended with that statement. Anyways, so, it just is kind of like, I think that if Trump has his way, we do go to the Supreme Court. If they go through with having the electors, remember you said you wanted to be an elector. If they go through with selecting an elector that's going to ignore what the state voted for and vote for Trump anyway, I think that Trump might finally get what he wants and getting that second civil war. I think that it'll be that intense for a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people are just going to sit down and take it.
No, I don't see that. a lot of civil unrest for a very long time.
All right. Well, Sean, you want to go ahead and wrap us up for this episode?
Yes. So the last thing I want to talk about is our dear sister, Brianna Taylor, who one of her killers was arrested, but that was for wanton endangerment. Because obviously in Kentucky, walls and windows of someone else's apartment are more important than the lives of Black women.
Well, not to mention the bullets that went into the other Black family's house were not counted in those charges. I just wanted to put that out there. Only the white family's house.
So I think that has just been a total letdown and disappointment. When I was reading the latest article from the Washington Post detailing that event, one, you settled a wrongful death lawsuit for $12 million, which means you believe that her death was wrong, but you're not going to charge these people that were responsible for it. The warrant they had was originally a no-knock warrant, but then it was changed, and they should have announced themselves, which they didn't. And her boyfriend, Kenneth, I can't think of what his last name is, even said, no one knocked. And we heard them banging, and we asked who it was, and no one knocked. There's no way to justify the police's actions on this account, because if any American hears loud banging like that at their door, they're going to be alarmed, and they're going to get up to protect themselves. So there's no way in the world I can believe at all that you don't see what's going on here. Furthermore, what irritates me is they try to blame the reason for going to her house on her ex-boyfriend, who was, I guess, selling drugs or whatever, and they believe he may have sold drugs out of her house or something. You know, the family had stated, including her new boyfriend, that they did have an off and on relationship, but at that present time, they had been off for several months. And then the gentleman himself, who was apprehended by the police before they even knocked on her door and entered, also said, she has nothing to do with this, and they're trying to use me as a scapegoat for her death. Like, he even stepped up and said, yeah, I did what they said I did, but it had nothing to do with her.
Well, and not just to mention, they went to the post office for investigations of her packages. Those packages came out to be nil. You know, there was no drugs, no suspicious packages. And then there was something about the affidavit that they gave to the judge to get the warrant was based on a lie to begin with, where they lied on it. Then they lied about the incident report when it happened. You know, this was just such a blatant...
Yeah, their incident report said that she didn't need any medical attention.
After you sent the hospital home, the ambulance, you sent them away, which leads me to believe that you had the intention on killing someone. You know, I know that gets elevated to like aggravated murder or, you know, whatever it's called, where you preconceive that you're going to do something. You go in there with the intent to do it. And then for the one police officer to go back downstairs to the outside of the apartment and then blindly shoot into her patio.
Yep.
While the other two officers were in there make it make sense. And when you have idiots like, what's that Black Republican girl's name?
Candace Owens
saying the police did everything right. When you have Daniel Cameron.
Well, that doesn't even,
that
doesn't even compute. You can't say the police did everything right, because they were fired and suspended for actually violating their own protocols. So That much is true, and you can't ignore. They did not do everything right. You had no reason to barge into her house when you already caught the suspect and the person you were looking for. They were already taken into custody several days prior. So at this point, why are you antagonizing this other person?
Mm-hmm. And you know what? It's a major cover-up that Daniel Cameron hasn't released the transcripts of his grand jury situation. Won't go into specifics, as he said 30 million times during his press conference. I'm led to believe that later on down the line that this will be a big cover up.
Oh, most sure.
It's sad that he was appointed to be the special prosecutor for two reasons. Sad because Kentucky went and picked the black man to go be the special prosecutor so they could pin it on him. So they could say, look, a black guy said that nothing was wrong here. And B, it's sad that he went along with it and then tried to say, I, as a black man, too, have had these types of interactions with the police. It's just disgusting on every single level. It was expected, but disgusting. And,
well, again, to me, she deserves more. When you have people in jail for 45 years for shooting a dog, and then somebody sprays 5 bullets into an apartment and can't even see, and take the life of someone, nobody calls the rescue squad at all. You send the ambulance away and nothing happens. You're charged for bullets that went into somebody else's house. I want to have a good week.
It's a sad day.
It is a sad day. And that's all I'm going to say on that topic. Because like I said, I want to have a good week. And I just really wish that we didn't have to continue with all of these heavy occurrences. And, at this point, there's nothing more that I can say to anybody who combats Black Lives Matters, because if you can't understand this as a human rights campaign, and you're only thinking about an organization, then it's because you're racist and that's how you want to feel. I can't anymore. I'm at the point where I'm literally exhausted. I'm literally done. And my life and the life of people who look like me should never be political or politicized, but it is. It absolutely is. And people are just disgustingly evil and disgustingly racist, and they don't want to admit it. And at the end of the day, my biggest question is, what did I do to you? Why is my skin so threatening to you that you feel you have to behave in this manner?
And there it is. Sean, go ahead and conclude for us.
So that's all the time we have today on this episode of Assent, Dissent. Thank you guys for hanging in there with us. We will see you again next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Again, I'm Sean Strong.
And I'm Brandon Diaz.
Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and share on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. All the places you can find your podcast. We are at Assent_Dissent. Thank you all and have a great night.